Hi everyone. This video is for review. We've already covered this material in class, but in case you want to use this video to help study for your midterms. Okay. So we've talked about different forms of genetic inheritance. The one we've been primarily talking about is complete dominance. This is just when if there's one dominant allele present, then it's going to be expressed. So whether or not it's heterozygous, which means there's only one, or you're homozygous dominant, you will only see the dominant trait and the recessive one will get masked. There's other forms of phenotypic expression. So in the other one, incomplete dominance, this is when you have a heterozygous individual, which has both recessive and dominant allele. Neither of them are going to be fully expressed, and they kind of blend into each other in terms of its appearance. So you get something that's kind of intermediate. So you'll notice, for example, this daughter right here doesn't look fully Asian and doesn't look fully Caucasian, and so it's kind of like an intermediate, and so that's kind of how you could think of it for incomplete dominance. Something else that's different from what we've previously talked about. We've only been talking about having two kinds of genes for one trait, but you can actually have multiple genes that express for the same trait. So, for example, you could have, for blood type, there are three different alleles that you can have, A, B, or O. These are the versions you've probably seen in your textbook. But all of these are different possibilities for the one trait, which is blood type. And just some extra information. AB, this kind of blood type, is actually the universal receiver, which means that it could receive blood from either A, B, or O, or other ABs. It will never clot with the other types of blood types. Whereas O, this one, it's the universal donor. So anyone who has O blood type can donate their blood, and their blood shouldn't interfere with anyone else's blood. Blood type is also an example of codominance. Codominance is just when individuals are heterozygous, but both alleles are fully expressed. And so you'll see something like this, where here's kind of what, let's say, a red blood cell looks like with type A, and this is what it is for type B. And here you'll have both A and B types of proteins on the red blood cell. If it was incomplete, it would kind of look like a mix between these two. You'd have these like maybe circles that kind of look like triangles, or triangles that kind of look like circles. But for codominance, you have some that are distinctly circles and some that are distinctly triangles. Okay, something else is called pleiotropy. This is another variation to Mendelian genetics. This is when one gene influences multiple characters. An example they give in the textbook is sickle cell disease, and this is just a disease that changes the shape of your red blood cells, and is very painful for the people who have it, because red blood cells that are these strange kind of crescent shapes, they get stuck in your bloodstream, and so it's hard for blood to move throughout your body. This is an example of pleiotropy, where one gene kind of influences multiple parts of the red blood cell. It doesn't just affect its shape, it affects other things. The opposite of pleiotropy is polygenic inheritance, and this is when there are many genes that affect one phenotypic character. So all these genes affect one thing that you see. So an example of this would be skin color. It's not just one gene that affects what color or tone of color your skin is, but there's multiple ones. And so you'll see that these two girls are actually twins, and they're born from the same parents, yet they look very different from each other. And their hair color and their skin color look really different, even though they're very similar genetically. But there's so many different genes that affect both their skin and hair color that they can still look really different. The last thing, just remember that we've only really been focusing on genetics, but really everything that you see, every part of who you are, is not just affected by your genetics, but also your environment. And so it's the interplay between your environment and your genetics that really is what affects your phenotype, or what you look like. So like we were just talking about skin color, you're naturally born with a certain genetic predisposition for a certain kind of skin color. But if you expose yourself to, let's say, a lot of sun, then you're obviously going to get a lot darker. And here you can see the contrast between what he is naturally and then what happens after the environment. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Bye.